Who is going to experience a white Christmas this year? Now, to have a white Christmas, you need to have at least 1 inch of snow on the ground Christmas morning or have snow falling. In recent years, some areas have struggled to see a white Christmas more than normal. We could see that change this year though, especially out east. So let's get into who I think has the greatest chances to see a white Christmas and who has above average or above normal chances to see a white Christmas this year. Let's start off with the averages. Who usually has the best chance for a white Christmas? This map right here is based on the years 1981 to 2010. And I will say this stretch was a little bit snowier than we have been in recent history. Not by a ton, but definitely a little bit. So I would actually push down these percentages just a smidge. In the grand scheme of things though, it's not that big of a difference. These percentages are pretty close. As you can see, the real winners here, of course, the Rockies. This just has to do with elevation. It's cold enough up there to start getting snow sometimes in late September, early October. So they start building a snowpack quickly. Our northern central states here, you can see each year you have at least a minimum of a 60% chance of seeing a white Christmas. For anyone living in Minneapolis or planning to move there, you have about a 71% chance each year of seeing a white Christmas. The next closest major cities only come in at about a 34% chance, and this includes Chicago, Illinois, and Denver, Colorado. And we're defining a major city as a city with a metro population of at least 1 million people. Because although some areas like Marquette, Michigan, Duluth, Minnesota, and Fargo, North Dakota have a much higher percent chance of seeing a white Christmas, their populations are much smaller. But believe me, those cities and a handful of others are very, very snowy. Duluth, Minnesota in particular has about a 90% chance of seeing a white Christmas. So years when it's not snowing in Duluth or you don't have at least 1 inch of snow on the ground, it's a little bit strange. Moving out further east, you can see Michigan does pretty well. And then as we get into northern PA and inner New England, your chances are pretty high out here. Now this area in particular is the big question mark. We know there's a lot of big cities here. Kansas City, Omaha, Des Moines, Chicago, Indianapolis, Columbus, Dayton, New York City, Boston, DC, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Cleveland, Detroit, and I know I'm missing some, but I don't have all day. This is the area where you have a lot of frustrated people each year because it is such a toss-up. And then we have our southern tier region down here where it's happened before and you know it'll happen again. But this is kind of a once in a decade event. The biggest reason a lot of people down in these regions struggle and out near the coast is just temperatures. The coldest air settles in mid to late January, and that's when you start to see snow in these regions. It's really difficult leading into Christmas to have that cold air in place. I do think these percentages will slip a little bit to the south and the east and will have slightly better chances. Let's talk about it. First off, if you want to know your city's actual percentage, this is a really cool map. It's interactive. You can go and you can click on different cities. It'll show you elevation, probability of at least 1 inch of snow on Christmas. So I'm going to put this link in the description of the video so you guys can check out what is your historical chance of seeing snow on the ground. We've already had one breakdown of the stratospheric polar vortex this year due to a SSWE or sudden stratospheric warming event, which happened to be the earliest one in recorded history, or at least since the satellite era. Well, moving ahead, it looks like we're going to have the possibility of another SSWE. As we move into the middle of December, notice this warmth that wants to creep back into the Arctic. As I've said before, just because the stratosphere over the Arctic is warming, that doesn't mean we're immediately getting cool down in the States. You typically have a lagging period. So how quickly this happens, if it does happen, which I think it will, that will help determine how much cold air we could get. Now, because this is happening in mid-December, we may actually not feel the strongest effects from this until early January. But our tropospheric polar vortex, right beneath our stratospheric polar vortex, is going to be experiencing a similar pattern. I want you to notice what happens here with our tropospheric polar vortex as we approach mid-December. You start to see a split, and there it is. Instead of having one low pressure system sitting up here over the Arctic, we now have a split. You can see our lows here are separated, and we have this warmth spreading throughout the Arctic. This is a big deal if this happens in the week or two leading up into Christmas, because this can easily cause our polar jet to become extremely variable. So what does our more calm, normal winter polar jet look like? Well, a little bit more like a circle or an oval. And what happens when we have that stretched tropospheric polar vortex? Well, our jet stream, like I said, becomes very variable, starts to wobble. You get all of these indentations in the polar jet where you can get very strong ridging and very deep troughing. And taking a look at our European extended ensemble, you can see these large dips, these large ridges, and this type of pattern is what can put well below average temperatures and well above average snowfall in some places. But it can also do the opposite and put a lot of heat and a lot of dry air over certain regions. And this type of pattern in particular, with this ridging over Alaska and this energy moving across the Pacific around this time frame, would be very favorable for some very cold and snowy conditions across the central US and out east. Especially this ridging up up here in Alaska and some ridging out in the western Pacific, or a negative WPO. This allows for a lot of cool air to spill into the central and eastern US. And if you have that moisture and that energy feeding in off the Pacific, which you can see with this energy or troughing down here moving across the Pacific, again, this is a great setup. So that below average air, above average snowfall, if we get this variable jet, which I believe we will, is going to favor the central plains and out east, especially the east. And the west may struggle, although you could still see some good snow up in the northwest. Right here is our European 7-day temperature anomalies leading into Christmas. So this is from December 18th to December 25th, and notice where all of the below average temperatures want to be. The precipitation isn't the issue with getting snowfall leading up to Christmas in a lot of these areas. It's the temperatures, because the coldest air, like I said, is usually moving in mid to late January and early February. Our GFS agrees with the European as well. And would you look at that? So does the Canadian. Now the Canadian has it a little bit warmer up here in northern New England, but at this time of year, that far north up here in Maine, even if you run a little bit above average, you're probably still most of the time below freezing. So the cold air looks to be there out east. Now let's take a look at the precipitation. You can see here on our Euro extended leading up into Christmas, some good precipitation is expected up in the northwest, and then we're about average across the rest of the US except for down here through portions of the southern plains and southeast. Our GFS agrees with the northwest, somewhat agrees with the southeast and southern plains, although it gives us better chances for moisture up here through the Great Lakes region, portions of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and then up here through maybe portions of the Mid-Atlantic and New England. This is another good sign on the Canadian for moisture up here through this region. Again, southern plains is the thing that keeps popping out here as dry leading up into Christmas, and then precipitation up here in the northwest looks pretty good. So the real winner with temperature and precipitation right now is this region. I decided to take a look at some analogs. What Decembers had a very similar atmospheric pattern to this one, and who saw snow that year? The 2005, 2008, and 2017 Decembers stood out. We had a similar Enso pattern. We had some southeastern ridging. We had similar fluctuations with our NAO, and we had a very cold and snowy start for portions of the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes region, and New England like we have had this year. Leading up into Christmas in 2008, we actually had snowfall along the mid-Atlantic and New England coastline, and we had seen some southern snow as well. For December 2017, we had also gotten some snow up and down the mid-Atlantic and New England coast, and guess what? We had seen southern snow once again, although we were struggling a little bit with snow through the Midwest and Ohio Valley. But we've already gotten that snow this year. For the most part in 2017, except for the high elevations, we were pretty dry out west. In 2005, we did good from the northern plains through the Midwest and Great Lakes region, up through New England, and we actually got some good snow up and down the coast here right after Christmas in early January. But in 2005, we did struggle in the south. So with all of this knowledge, who do I think is a lock for a white Christmas, and who do I think has an above average chance of seeing a white Christmas this year? Well, I'll tell you right now, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, you're still safe, especially with our pattern this year. It definitely supports the northern plains, upper Midwest, and inner New England, Great Lakes region. Now I know this is where you typically have a higher percentage, but we are even colder than average and expecting above average snow in this region. Now with the flow of moisture and the below average temperatures and the precipitation expectations out east, I do think you're gonna have a higher chance than normal pushing down here through St. Louis, through potentially northern Kentucky, and then out towards the New England coast here. DC, Baltimore, and Philly, it's going to be close. What you have on your side, I believe, is the cold air leading into Christmas time. So if the GFS and Canadian extended ensembles are onto something, and you do see that above average precipitation here leading up into Christmas, you could end up with a big snowfall out here around that time. I would slightly increase our odds through the south here. Now you typically have under a 10% chance here. I'd move it up to a 10 to 15% chance, maybe even a 10 to 20% chance if you're up here through portions of northern Arkansas, through Tennessee and North Carolina. And again, that's typically because the hardest part about getting a white Christmas in these areas is the cold air. The confidence in the cold air though is very high. Out west, it's going to be tough if you're not in the mountains. Except for the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies, you may see some good snow falling leading into Christmas. But again, with a very variable, unpredictable jet stream leading into Christmas time, which is what I expect, we could see something unprecedented. All right, so I had already finished this video and I was editing, and then I realized I did not talk about the MJO. The MJO forecast wants us to stay in a phase 8 basically through December and into the beginning of January. This is an extremely cold phase for portions of the northern plains, down through the Ohio Valley, sometimes out into the southeast, but especially for the mid-Atlantic and New England. And this right here just reinforces what I was talking about, why I think you have a better chance for a white Christmas through portions of the plains and out east, but especially for people who are out east. And before I wrap up this video, I did just want to put this map up. If you're in these blues and purples, you're seeing above average snowfall so far this season. And if you're in the red, you're seeing below average. I know everyone along the mid-Atlantic and New England coastline right now is pretty upset, but like I said, this pattern could support big snow out there leading in to the end of December. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I post videos like this every single day, and I live stream every day to answer all of your weather-related questions. If you want to become a member of the Climate Crew, the link to my Discord is right down in the description. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or in the live stream.